What's the stupidest thing you ever said that genuinely made you question your intelligence? Story 1. One time I said I wish I could swim in the air and my friend said, "You mean flying?" Story 2. My manager's manager asked me to ballpark the percentage of time I was spending on each of my 3 projects. I confidently told him 75% on Project A, 25% on Project B, and 25% on Project C. I heard my cubicle neighbor laughing. Didn't immediately click that she was laughing at me. Manager's manager paused a moment, then in a very kind and patient voice, like he was speaking to a Labrador with a learning disability. "So I'd like those numbers to add up to 100%. Can you try again?" Then it dawned on me. Story 3, I don't know if this counts because praise the Lord I did not say it aloud. The scene, me, a college senior still living in a dorm doing my weekly snacks and root beer run at the local Walmart. The thought, man, how do people with a whole family grocery shop? Like, what do you do if you buy more than you can fit in your arms? Carts. That's what carts are for. Story 4. I was on a long train trip gazing out the window when I said to my friend, "I feel like every railroad crossing gate we've passed since I've been looking has been down. What are the odds? I have a PhD, not in trains." Story 5. Years ago, a coworker and I were discussing how many Japanese people apparently have a KFC dinner for Christmas. We then wondered, what do they do for Thanksgiving? And began attempting to Google it. Spent quite a few minutes trying to search it up, remarking to each other in confusion that we couldn't find anything at all. I then realized how incredibly stupid we were. Story 6. Okay, here goes. I was going to be late for my psychology class. The teacher had already warned me not to be late. What do I see in my rearview mirror on the way to class? You guessed it. I was speeding and it was police lights. So I pull over and I give the officer my driver's license, Reg and Ina's papers. And he seemed very friendly and nice. And he says, "I will be right back, pure Goldie." That's when I got real dumb. I said, "Oh, BTW, will you write me a note for my teacher? I've already been warned not to be late today. I know this is making me late for sure." He replied with a big smile. "Oh, I'm going to write you a note, all right?" Yep, I was that dumb. Story 7. Back when I was working my first job at a McDonald's during high school, I was made manager and one of my coworkers was a guy named Miles. We called him Kilometers because herder such original joke. Anyway, one day I was grabbing a drive-through order while also trying to stock stuff and I noticed we were out of napkins. So what I meant to say was, "Hey, Miles, can you go grab us some napkins from the back real quick?" What I actually said was, "Hey, napkins, can you go grab us some stuff from the back real quick?" And everyone stared in silence. After a few seconds, Miles realized I was looking at him when I said it and said, "Did you just call me napkins?" My brain went over what I just said as the embarrassment set in and I just answered, yes, as a matter of fact, I did. His nickname was no longer Kilometers, he was Napkins from that day on. Story 8. I was at home in my apartment alone and cleaning up and realized I hadn't plugged the vacuum in. "Come on, John," I said out loud to myself, which was weird since I never talked to myself out loud. And the worst part was it came out, "Come on, Nana." Like, how do I call myself by name and then pronounce it wrong? Story 9. It was years ago and I was waiting tables. A lady came in and asked for a hot Diet Coke. I asked how TF I was supposed to make her a hot Diet Coke. She told me to put it in the microwave. My response verbatim. "But the ice will melt." Story. 10 years ago, I was watching a rugby game with the 4 or 5 others in my flat over a few quiet beers. The game was being commentated by a sort of famous ex-rugby player who was known for weird verbal gaffes, accidental, double entendres, and misspeaking. Some amusing examples I found. "Your first instinct when you see a man on the ground is to go down on him." Andy Ellis, the 21-year-old who turned 22 a few weeks ago. And, "It's all tied up at 14, 13. Anyway, after having a laugh or two at his expense already, he said something along the lines of, "This game is being played at a frenetic pace," which I, and I alone, laughed heartily at. "Frenetic!" I said loudly, in case the others hadn't quite twigged. Did he mean frantic or energetic? God pick one man, ha 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 ha. No one really said anything, and I got the funny feeling I just made a twat of myself. Fortunately for me, the commentator soon made another gaffe of some sort. Strangely, in slow-motion replay, the ball seemed to hang in the air for even longer, and everyone forgot and moved on. I quietly looked the word up and realized I got taught a word that night that means fast and energetic. It's been over 20 years and I've long since lost touch with those guys, but I still remember. Story 11. Me crossing the border from Mexico to CA. Border Patrol guy. "What B is your country of origin?" Me thinking that's easy. Me to border guard. "California." Guy gave me a look for a moment and then just said, go. Story 12. Ordered a burger with no onions, then onions rings because I don't like onions. The look the waitress gave me was priceless. She said, I think you maybe just don't like onions raw. Yeah, that's what I said. I don't like onions. Argued with her for 5 minutes and couldn't understand why she was questioning if I wanted onions on that burger. Story 13. I was in grade 1. Had a Canadian girl come to my school. Sprung up a friendship, looked her dead in the eyes and asked, what swear words do you know in Canadian? She tried to tell me multiple times it was the same words and I refused to believe her. I toss and turn at night knowing she probably tells people that now. Story 14. I was watching a TV show, can't remember what, with my family. There was this cute black girl who appeared in a scene and had a nice short hairstyle I thought was cool. I said out loud, if I was black, I would have my hair like that. I am a black guy. I meant to say girl. Story 15. Recently, I rattled off something I'd read on the internet to my mom. We were looking at military-style clothes that have the buttoned straps on the shoulders. I said it was really neat that those were for carrying your bags. She looked at me and said they were for holding your bars if you were high-ranking. I don't know why I believed even for an instant that shoulder straps would be able to carry 100-plus-pound bags. Story 16. Back in high school, we were learning about angular measurements. The teacher explained that the 3 main units were degrees, minutes, and seconds. He explained that there were 60 minutes to a degree, and then moved on. I raised my hand, we did that in those days, and asked, how many seconds in a minute? To which both the teacher and the rest of the class looked at me like I was an idiot. In my defense, I thought that maybe angular minutes and seconds might have a different relationship to temporal minutes and seconds, and we couldn't just assume that they were the same. This happened in 1979, and I still think about it occasionally and cringe at the thought. Story 17. Playing table tennis with my partner and having the absolutely phenomenal brainwave of, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this was like a game that was way bigger with a big net, and you have to run around to get the ball and, oh wait, that's just tennis. This the same week, and I was holding my daughter up in front of a low fish tank. So I was squatting down and thought, it would be so helpful if someone could like something sturdy to push under you while you squat to make it more comfortable. Oh wait, that's literally a chair. Story 18. One time I was in the grocery store and a couple were in front of the jar of pickles I wanted to get. They noticed me standing there and said, oh, are we in your way? They moved and I grabbed the jar. I then turned to them and said, thanks. Then, for some reason I'll never understand, added, I like pickles. They must have been thinking, well, it's nice that they let him do his shopping on his own. Story 19, grade 12. Was telling others in chem class that I saw our principal with her daughters in the mall. Someone asked, she has 2 daughters, right? Me, yeah, one is older than the other. Someone else, obviously. Me. Oh, right. Story 20. When I was first dating my husband, he took me to a football match and said it's played in quarters. I asked him, so how many quarters are there? 28 years later, still haven't lived it down, lol. Story 21. Someone asked me why I feed my 2-year-old cat kitten food, to which I replied, that's what she has always eaten. While technically true, I didn't realize how stupid it was until I said it out loud. She eats regular cat food now. Story 22. Doctor, had been my doctor since I was 4, asked me if I wanted to know the results of my pregnancy test. I said yes. I was positive the vomiting was an illness since it wasn't just morning, but all day long I'd even wake in the middle of the night to vomit. He said it's positive. I stared at him a moment and asked, does that mean yes or no? Story 23. My dad wanted me to fill up the gas can in the garage, but the way he worded it was something like, grab some gas for the mower. I thought they were sold full, like a jug of milk, so I was really confused when I went to Home Depot and all the gas containers were empty. My dad still laughs to this day. Story 24. I let my boyfriend borrow my newer air-conditioned automatic car to drive his visiting parents to their relatives, so I'm borrowing his manual car to visit my parents. I stop at a McDonald's, and at the stoplight turning out, I'm stuffing my face. Light turns green. I stall, then stall again. Finally, I remember his stick isn't my old stick, and I take off. Immediate lights. Cop stops me. He's pretty nice. Hey, you just stalled at that light a couple times. Wanted to make sure you were okay, but I see you were just eating. Me and my brilliant 20-year-old wisdom. Oh yeah, and drinking? His face. Cue panic in my brain before I'm clued into how much of a moron I am. Coca-Cola, just this. Fortunately, he laughed at me and let me go. Story 25. Oh man. Once the cute neighbor girl up the street and called me and said her parents were out of town and she was a little tipsy because she had started drinking wine. She tried on her little black dress and the zipper got stuck. Could I come over there and help her unzip it? Well, I didn't want to walk down the street for that dumb reason. I tried to talk her through it, complete with getting annoyed that she kept insisting that I just come over. It wasn't till years later I realized. Story 26. I was maybe 4 or 5 at the time. We're watching Lord of the Rings and Boromir dies. At this point, I turn to my mother and ask, "Mom, do people actually sacrifice themselves to make movies?" She began to laugh at me. I could understand that the orcs were fake and the fighting was fake, but the death, that's impossible. It has to be real. Story 27. It's wild that we don't actually know how planes work. Said to my ex-wife's boss, who was a qualified pilot, at a get-together for her work. The moment it left my mouth, I knew it was hands down the dumbest thing I'd ever said, and the look he gave me is burned into my mind forever. Even worse, as I said it, I remembered that not only do we know how planes fly, but I know and understand the physics behind it. I just had forgotten. It was like those memes where people see equations and diagrams as they are figuring out something floating around their head. But for me, I said the stupid thing, and everything about it came rushing back to me immediately afterwards, as I realized how dumb I sounded. So I patiently sat through a lecture on aerodynamics as he helpfully tried to correct me. The whole situation haunts me to this day, and it happened about 13 years ago. To the point that at least once a year I'll remember it and consider reaching out to him. "Hey man, remember when I said that fucking dumb as hell thing about planes? I do actually know how planes work, I just forgot, but then I remembered. So it's fine, I'm not an idiot, really." But then, I imagine he'd just say, "I know, I had to explain it to you afterwards, remember?" And then I'd be like, "Yeah, but I remembered by then and I felt like it would be rude to interrupt you, since I was the one who fucked up in the first place. I really did understand aerodynamics, and still do, for the record." And then he'd be like, "Sure you do, buddy, it's okay. How did you get this number?" Oof, I can never see or talk to this man again. Story 28. My husband and I were driving through Mishawaka on a rainy afternoon. I noticed so many padiddles, cars with one headlight out, and I said I wondered why there were always so many on rainy days. My husband patiently, but with the obvious tone of, "You're lucky you're cute," walked me through the logic of 1. It's daytime, so there are more cars out. 2. It's raining, so everyone's lights are on. Of course, you're going to see more padiddles. This was years ago, and he still gives me shit. Fun fact, my car is currently a padiddle, and the bulb blew during a rainstorm. Story 29. I once asked my dad, how do we have all these top-down pictures of the Milky Way if there's no way a spaceship could leave the Milky Way for billions of years? He, a mathematician, looked at me, a grad school graduate, as if I was the dumbest person he'd ever met. It did not occur to me that these were pictures of other galaxies that we assume look like the Milky Way or artist renditions. I was 25, so this was 26 years ago before AI, etc. Story 30. My friend was talking about her strict abstinence-only type upbringing while we were on our way to the city for a girls' night bar hopping. I asked her if her parents still thought she was a virgin. She just gawked at me. I was like, "What?" Then she said her daughter's name. I am an idiot, thank you. Story 31. In winter in Michigan, getting ready to leave for work, I couldn't find my car keys. I knew they had to be home because I drove home the day before. When I realized I was going to be late, I called my boss to tell him I'd be there as soon as I find my keys. I finished the conversation with, "Oh, my car's been running for a while, warming up. I need to go turn it off. He just said I should probably look for my keys in the car while I'm out there." Story 32. Not something I said, but something I did that haunts me. I made a roast chicken and kept trying to cut it up for dinner, burning my hands. Kept bitching to myself, asking how do people not burn themselves often. My boyfriend pointed out the existence of forks. He's now my husband, so at least I trapped him in time. Story 33. Not me, to be fair, though I did steal it afterwards. My family was at a beach some 7 or 8 years ago, and my mom was about to dip her feet into the water, went in and out like a cat and said, "The water is very wet." She meant cold, but we don't let her forget, and sometimes I slip that out when I am with my friends at a water park, etc. So I do feel stupid sometimes because nobody gets the joke. Story 34. Not me, but a customer. How many fish are in a 10-piece fish family pack? This happened at least once a week, and never failed to make me laugh. I asked a guy to repeat the question more slowly over the headset, and he got as far as, "How many fish?" before giving the biggest sigh and apologizing.